I'm on fire.
Go.
What is going on, guys? This is the 5 Yard Pass podcast with me, Suddy, and this is Sham. And today we have a special guest, Neel from Beyond the 90 Leicester City TV or Leicester City Football Club fan channel. Great to have you here, Neel. What's going on, man?
Yeah, not too bad. I think we just won 4-0. We'll probably get onto that in a bit.
Win.
So we're all
Absolutely.
happy. Leicester are doing well at the moment. So yeah, can't complain too much.
And Sham, big night of FA Cup games, couple of near upsets. Like Everton nearly lost. Well, nearly lose, but they got taken to the 93rd minute. United had a boring game, and Arsenal won amazingly. I mean, it's a big night of upsets.
Arsenal did have to go to extra time though. Aubameyang scored, so yeah. First goal.
I guess we'll start.
There, but, yeah.
I guess we'll start with the Leicester game. With respect to Neel being here, it's a good game, man. Like me and Sean will be talking a lot about Leicester. We obviously have a joke, and you probably do. There's a few certainties in life, and Jamie Vardy scoring is one of them. Although he didn't get on the score sheet last night. For me, I thought wouldn't be surprised, but the big player last night was James Justin. I thought he was unbelievable. And to cap it off with that goal, I was looking at his stats, and I think 6 or 7 dribbles completed, a couple of take-ons. I think he's only 22 as well. What's the community thinking of him now? I mean, I think he's been one of the big fullbacks of the season.
Yeah, we're really excited that he's coming on. So he came in last year because one of our biggest players was Ricardo. And I think he was kind of grabbing the headlines, and he's got this massive, I think he had an ankle injury and it kept him out for 9 months. So James Justin had to step in. And Leicester's recruitment is one of the things that we're really proud of, is our recruitment system and how we've recruited players. Bearing in mind, I think 2-3 years ago, James Justin was playing in League Two. So from that, he's come up to the Premier League, and he's had the opportunity, and he can play left wing, right wing, wing backs. He can play in this back three. He's absolutely phenomenal. And this year, he's just stepped up his game massively. And it's a team where we are inconsistent at times because we're such a young team, and we're going to have slip-ups. But the more that we keep going, and the manager and everything is just going in one direction, I'm really excited for the future. But yeah, good win, and James Justin is a quality player for us.
Because I think Brendan Rodgers has sorry, Sham. I think Brendan Rodgers has the way Ranieri built a team, or one team to win the league, and it's still one of the most amazing things, amazing finishes to a season. But Brendan Rodgers has come to build a club, and amongst the kind of the disaster that happened 2 years ago with a year ago now with the owner, he's come in and he's built a club, and you can see sustainability going on with Leicester, and it just reflects. I think you go into most games now, if not all games, thinking you can win. I think perhaps bar Liverpool, but you look at Liverpool now, they're kind of struggling. You go into nearly every game thinking like, yeah, we can have a fat crack. We're going to win this game. We could win this game. Sorry, Sham.
No, I was just going to say, I think in regards to Leicester's recruitment, you brought up, players coming from the lower divisions. I think that a lot of Premier teams by default go overseas and try and look for players like France and Germany and all of that. That old sort of, it sounds a bit old-fashioned, but getting players from the lower divisions and coming up, you don't see a lot of it nowadays. And the headline example is probably Jamie Vardy, but there are players in Leicester has done very well in terms of recruiting players from those lower divisions into the Premier League.
Yeah, there's kind of a combination of everything. I think the model we kind of work off, it used to be the Southampton kind of thing where we'd get players and sell them on for big money. And we still have that one a season. So you go back to the year that we won the Premier League, there was like Kante, Mahrez, Maguire, all of these players. I think Ben Chilwell of recent to Chelsea. We tend to sell on a big player, and it's part of our recruitment. We'll then get that money and then invest it into another player. So we sold Chilwell. We bought in Castagna for about 25 million. And he's been an absolute gem, in my opinion. He's been out with injury for a while, but especially in that game, he kind of showed his running ability, and he runs for 90 minutes. And we do a little bit of everything. So we kind of get from the lower leagues where we did before. So we got Johnny Evans from the Championship when they were relegated, Harry Maguire as well. And then you got other ends like Wesley Fofana, who was like a 19-year-old. I think he might have been our transfer target as well. And Brendan Rodgers, I was listening to a podcast recently talking specifically about there's this difference between gold standard and silver standard player, gold medal and silver medalist. And gold medalist would be something like a top of the tier kind of has already proved themselves kind of player. And the next step down is what we go for. So a player that's kind of been underlooked a little bit, or they've been relegated, so people aren't interested in them. And then we take them, get the manager, get the training ground, and then we just try to go, right, we can take you to the best level possible. So that's where Leicester is at the moment, and it is all starting to slip together. And a lot of the fans that we've got on, even when we come on our channel, have been supporting them for 20, 30 years now. And to see the development, there's a part of us that just needs to pinch ourselves and go, we're in the Premiership still. We still need to be very proud of that fact, because it's still bizarre to me that I used to remember watching them finishing 13th in the Championship and going, okay, we didn't get relegated. We weren't brought into relegation. That's a good season. So
yeah.
It's kind of a balancing act, but the owners are just a massive, honestly, I genuinely think, and I'm being slightly biased here, but I don't care, that we have the best owners in the league, because they're just putting so much money and so much trust into the community and into the football club that they've taken us in 10 years from 2009, from League One right up to literally win the Premier League and staying in about the Europa League spots. I think that's an amazing achievement.
I actually didn't realize they'd gone down to League One. I remember in high school, a good mate I played football with in high school was from Leicester, so he was always a big Leicester man. I think would have been '99. I think they finished 10th in the Premier League, and he was gutted because I think they lost to Nottingham Forest on the last day and would have got top 8 if they won that game. So to hear that I didn't actually realize they'd gone all the way down to League One. So and the scouting point's interesting as well. I've told the story in this channel before. I don't know how true it is or if I got my facts right, but I heard a story of a Leicester scout going to a second division game to watch Kante and saw Mahrez on the other team. So it brought both of the names back to the team and ended up getting both of those players. So definitely they seem to identify the right personalities as well as the right players technically. But one guy I wanted to ask you about was Wesley Fofana. So he was the big signing for this season. I was looking at WhoScored.com, and behind Jamie Vardy, he's actually the best performing player for Leicester in the Premier League, according to WhoScored. I just wanted to ask you a bit about what you think he's added to the team.
So yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant. He's hit the ground running. We had an injury, like a lot of teams, we've had massive injuries to our star players this season. So Soyuncu had a brilliant season last season as well. Got this injury and was out for about 2 to 3 months. So we were thinking, oh dear, here we go. Then we've got Wes Morgan, who's kind of there, but he's more of a coach. He doesn't really play. I think he's only played maybe 3 or 4 games as kind of substitute at the moment. And so Fofana had to step in and he hit the ground running. And it's amazing to see. And he's playing alongside Johnny Evans, who again I think was written off a little bit, but now he's come back into Leicester. He's kind of right. He's a properly world-class defender, as in like the way he coaches, the way he teaches. He's really underrated because he's the reason why Soyuncu is as good. But so when Soyuncu got injured, Fofana came in. We were looking at him going, this guy is something. However, if you look at the Stoke game, there's still a mistake in him. He got a yellow card quite early on, and you're looking at things like, okay, a more experienced player doesn't get that yellow card, doesn't do the tackle where he needs to pick up a yellow, and it's because he's trying. And Soyuncu did the same thing. I think he got sent off a couple of times last year, and one last year, and I think he got conceded a few penalties a year before. So the way Leicester work is that they get a player and they train them up, and we build them up. So next year, hopefully, he'll be brilliant. So it's one of those things where in the air, he's really good. Defensively, he's really good. He's solid. His reading of the game is fantastic. And I think Johnny Evans was saying he potentially will be one of the world's best centre-backs, which is incredible to think about. And if Johnny Evans is saying it, I mean, he's won, I think, 5 different trophies, including like Champions League and Premier Leagues with Man United. So he knows what he's talking about.
About Johnny Evans' quality. Yeah, we're big on the Johnny Evans train.
Just one last thing, lads. Just one last thing before we get to the league games tomorrow. I just wanted to say, like I've said this to Sham as well, I've said it to a few friends, but typically speaking, when an Asian, initially myself and Sham, we have roots in Singapore, so we kind of know the scene of football in Singapore. We both played there. Typically when an Asian, especially Southeast Asian owner comes into a club, they have this kind of fantasy football mentality. Cardiff, QPR, Inter Milan, Valencia. Valencia is the Singapore owner himself, Peter Lim. It's actually amazing, and then you can talk about Thaksin as well at Man City before the Sheikh came in. I just have to say, like, it's quite impressive to see he's kind of bucked the trend, and whatever he's done behind the scenes, and it's just been amazing. And there's not much analysis I can say into it because I haven't looked into it much. I'm just talking about the trend of those kind of owners coming in. So fair play to Leicester. In the interest of time, we've got to move on. All right, we'll move on to the league games this week. So we'll start off with the United Burnley game. So a bit out of your spectrum of your channel, Neil, but United Burnley, is United as good as they say this year, or do you think the league ladders, the table's lying? Do you think Liverpool's just not as good?
it's just a weird. It's a weird table in general this year because all sorts of things are happening. Man United are a decent team, however, they've still got a mistake in them, and they kind of they're a decent team, but if they turn up, they're amazing. Away from home, they're really good. And sorry, is Man United playing at home or away?
I think it's away to Burnley.
I thought it was a home game, actually.
Oh, it's a home game. Sorry, excuse me. It's a home game. Yeah.
Okay, so I think Man United should be able to take it. Burnley I think they've been hit with COVID as well, so they're not doing too well. And I think they'll be okay overall, but I think it should be an easy 2-3-0 win for Man United.
Yeah, right. And Sham, we've talked about Bruno in the last game. He didn't kind of show. Well, I guess against Man City, he didn't show up in the semi-final. Who do you think would be a key player for them? This it is actually a away game. I'm just looking at it now.
Oh, it's away game?
Yeah, it's an away game. United's away form. I think it's the second best to Leicester in the league, potentially. Or maybe Leicester's second best. But who would you see as a key player for them this week? Do you think it's another Bruno game, or do you think people are going to step up?
I do think that Bruno hadn't played in the FA Cup, which is the first break he's got in about forever. They do need to be careful about his workload because, like anyone else, if he's overworked, his effectiveness does come off. I do think he does seem to be the player who provides those sort of big moments. I do think that Burnley have been a very difficult side to break down. They're not a side that concedes a lot of goals, and they do not have a problem with grinding out the nil or draw. I think they've had at least, I think it's away from home, they've had at least 3 this season. So they don't score a lot, but they don't concede a lot. So they'll need that sort of moment of magic. And I think it might come down to someone like a Paul Pogba to get that sort of moment out of him. He's not, we talked a lot about Pogba, and he doesn't necessarily have big games or big seasons, but he does produce moments. So I think it might come down to that. And Cavani's suspension is over, so I'd expect him to start as well. I think he'll have a big role to play.
Is Cavani's? Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, so he's done the 3 games. Yeah. Back to you, Neel. I was just, what do you think? You say United has a mistake in them, and that kind of thing. So, do you think we should be looking past anyone beyond? Well, if you had to pick a winner of the season, who was yours at the start of the season? I guess things change now. I thought Chelsea was going to win it myself, and I've said this many times, but I think I'm very well wrong. I did think Leicester would be up there. I did think United would be up there. But who do you think would you put your money on right now, or do you think it's still the uncertainty is too much?
Yeah, normally at this stage in the season, you could say it's either this person or this person, and there'd be 1 or 2 teams, or maybe 3, that would be competing for them top positions. But this season, you can't really rely on anything because there's just so much going on and so many different things that are happening. So I couldn't honestly tell you. I think Liverpool, it just varies game to game, and the whole narrative behind the Premier League varies game to game. So you look a couple of weeks back, Liverpool have won it, go away, blah, blah, blah. Then they get 2 draws and a loss, and all of a sudden the narrative changes. Man United go on to just continue their run, and things change. So it's honestly, and if they're just looking at them too, but even somebody like an Aston Villa, who are actually playing quite, I think we'll get on to them in a bit. Man City is still on their day, can still, as you found out against Man City and Man United, they can still turn up and do some damage. So the points are not just in the top 2; it's literally to the top 10. So any of them teams could win or lose this season, and it's just going to be a battle of attrition because the top 6 teams, I think, are pretty much all in Europa League or Champions League as well, and that's going to have an impact on this season because it started so late. So honestly, it's anybody's game at the moment, and to say it's just Liverpool and Man United, I think, is a bit is not the right way to think about it. But they are obviously they're probably the 2 biggest fan bases in the world, to be honest.
Yeah.
As a Leicester man, do you feel that that instability around what's going on in the top 6, 8, 9, do you think that benefits Leicester, or do you think it's to their detriment?
It benefits us, but what we need to do, because we learned last season, we had a load of, basically this is a very similar team to what we had last season, and lots of young players got carried away and thought, right, we can chase Liverpool to the league, and we got battered at home 4-0, and that knocked the confidence, and for the rest of the season we never really recovered from that. So I think for us, it's a good position to just be under the radar. Do we think? I think we can. A lot of us predicted at the beginning of the year that we were going to finish 10th, 12th. I think some of the people were saying like 8th to 10th, 12th. So the fact that we're in these positions, and if we can, for Leicester, it's more consistent. more important to stay consistent over a number of years than actually just go in and then come off, because we did that with the Premier League winning season. We went first and then we fell off the cliff in the Premier League. So if we can build something with a manager that is young, that is learning, and with a team that is young and learning, I think we can do something consistent. But it's benefiting Leicester for sure, and play other teams as well.
I think to your point there about City, I was watching the game 3 nights ago now, and they look like they're back in business, man. They just turned the screw from minute one. United had a couple of chances early on, but I think John Stones had an own goal, but it was ruled offside. But City, I would have to pick City right now if I had to pick anyone, you know, at kind of the turn of the new year. But I guess we'll get to the game in a second, but City are just looking so deadly, and Fernandinho just coming in at the right time. John Stones and Ruben Diaz forming a very unlikely partnership. I thought John Stones was done. Genuinely, I thought he's off to Spurs or whatever it is he's done, but he's done really well. We'll move on, I guess, guys. We're going to Spurs Villa. Mourinho's kind of steadied the ship a little bit. We thought, like you said, a month ago, the narrative was Mourinho's back, the special one's back. He's going to win the league. Arsenal fans obviously are delighted to see their downfall rather than their own downfall. But Villa Spurs, Sham, I know you love Jack Grealish. How do you see the game going?
Villa, they played well enough against Liverpool, but they are quite heavily affected by COVID. I think that they had an average. The team against Liverpool had an average age of 18 years old. They had about 5 first choice players up, but they still acquitted themselves quite well. It was 4-1 to Liverpool, but I'm not going to say it flattered Liverpool, but they had to really work to get that 4-1 win, I think, against Villa. They've not had, I believe, I got it wrong for the last game, but I believe this game is at Villa Park. Villa have not had great home form. And I think that Tottenham have also struggled a bit away, but not so much in terms of losing games. They have, I think the last 6 games they've had away from home, they've had 4 draws. So that ability for Tottenham to turn draws into wins away from home, which is really where you go from being a pretender to a contender. And I think that that's where Tottenham are at the moment. They need to show that they're flattered to deceive at times. They've done well at certain points, but they just need to kick on and really become that team that, you know, with that strike force of Son and Kane, you'd expect them to be, if they could get Bale up and running, for instance, that front 3 at its peak would be a challenge for anyone in the league. So I do think Tottenham will win. I'm saying that purely on the assumption that Villa still have a lot of those players out with COVID, but I don't think that Tottenham will win. I'll go 2-1 to Tottenham. With those Villa players out, but I think Villa have definitely maximised the ability out of their squad. They've had a very good season, but just with the issue with COVID, it's going to happen a lot now. I think between now and particularly the next month or so, where you could see a lot of these situations happening where, you know, 4 or 5 players will be out for a team, and it could just affect the results and affect the league a lot more. As crazy as this season is, it could just become a bit more crazy.
And Neel, you talked about gold and silver player kind of ratings that Brendan Rodgers kind of talks about. A guy who I see as a silver player would be someone like Højbjerg for Spurs. I think he's gone under the radar a little bit. People, if you had watched Southampton, you would say, okay, this guy's a solid player. But I think this season he's kind of come to the fore. Mourinho loves that Makelele, that kind of Carvalho kind of attitude. You know, as he says, you got to be a bastard to win the league. I think is that what he says in the documentary. But how do you see Spurs in terms of the way they play? Because I think they're being figured out a little bit. Do you think they should change anything? And do you think that this Son and Kane partnership will kind of continue for years to come? Or do you think it's something that defenses can figure out quite easily?
Yeah, it's a weird one because, again, Son and Kane have probably had the best, well, especially Son has had probably the best start to a season that he's had since he's joined Tottenham. Yeah. And Kane, again, is just firing. I think he's got 11 assists and 10 goals, which is insane for this kind of season. Yeah. And they're both, so you can see that as a positive. Obviously, Højbjerg's a positive. Defensively, they're lacking a little bit. And I think the tactics that they've got doesn't really hold out at times. You're looking at the likes of Sergio Aurier's got a mistake in him. And Doherty's got a red card, so I think he'll be available for this game. So there's all sorts of stuff that's happening, and again, it's just one of those things where I can't. Before it looked like they were going to be challenging for the title, and now they have a couple of bad runs. I think three losses on the like 3 bad results on the go, and they come all the way back down. And I think it's annoying because the narrative changes so much. And you were saying City, again, they've been written off, but now they're coming back into form. So again, they could come back in. I don't know exactly what they need to change, but something they just need that extra, all the teams pretty much, but Tottenham especially, just need that extra push, an extra player to give it that extra so that they can again turn lost into draws and draws into wins, and then they'll be competing. So there's a lot of teams that are like that, but Tottenham are definitely one of them where if something clicks, if they bring in a player that just has that extra, Bale's probably a good example as well, as Sean was saying, push them on to the next level, they could be up there to win the title, in my opinion.
So how do you see this game going if you had to pick a score?
Nor if this was a full side Aston Villa, I would honestly say Aston Villa to win.
No, I guess that's the caveat there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd go for a draw. I think Mourinho he's not got his tactics right this season for a lot of the big games, and he's been found out. And I think Dean Smith's doing a really good job at Aston Villa, and they've brought in some great players, and they've got a great back line, but they've just had that year to kind of adapt to the Premier League, and now they're soaring. I think they're a team that's been underlooked a lot, but I think they'll still be able to get a draw out of this game, even with the amount of injuries they've got.
I mean, absolutely, man. They have the third best defense in the league behind City and Spurs. And it has to do a lot. We talked about this, I think, 2 episodes ago. We talked about John Terry making the difference. It has to have made a difference with Tyrone Mings. You see the confidence he has. And if you have potentially one of the best, if not the best defender ever in the league, whispering in your ear, telling you how to move, how to get in position, you're bound to obviously benefit from that. Last game we'll talk about, I guess, today is the Arsenal Palace game. Arsenal, bit of a run. I mean, where are they now? They've climbed up a little bit. They're looking good. They've done what the fans have been kind of calling out for in terms of bringing in the youth players. Emil Smith-Rowe has been a bit of a revelation, but you'd expect that to kind of burn out, Neel. So they're playing Palace, a Palace side which can cause a lot of problems. They started quite well. They kind of dropped off a little bit. What do you think needs to change for Arsenal? Because I personally feel that the form of their last few games is kind of a rebound form from the last 10 games. I don't think it's going to sustain over the long term in terms of the season. It's going to be ups and downs. But what do you think Arsenal need to change, and how do you see the game going?
Arsenal are just in a rebuild period, in my opinion, and they just need to address things like the Ozil situation. This is the hard season for Arsenal fans to kind of understand that a lot of the teams go through this kind of period of down, and they're really struggling with that. And it's a mixture of everything. The manager, the players aren't turning up, the board aren't making the right signings as well, and there's no cohesion between the three of them. So I think they'll be okay for the season if they can potentially push for the top 10. I think that'll be great. Arteta's still figuring things out, and they will get there eventually, but it will just take time. And with what they're used to and the squad they've got, they should be doing a lot better. But however, I think they'll figure it out by the end. But I still think they've got enough to beat Crystal Palace, because we've had a Palace fan on our channel as well, and they're not too happy at the moment. I think Palace tend to go through big dips of form, but with under Roy Hodgson, they're not playing attractive football. But the caveat was that they were winning and they were drawing. Now that they're not doing that, people are asking, well, why is Roy Hodgson here?
Yeah, right. And same question to you, Sham. We haven't really, I mean, to be fair, we've not really talked about Arsenal much in the last few weeks because they have been winning. It was kind of fun to poke a bit of fun at them, and they weren't.
But there's a turn in form from the relegation zone.
There's a turn in form. To be fair, man, we were big believers in Arteta, especially when he beat United 6-7 games ago, whatever it was. We thought, oh, God, this guy knows what he's doing, because they showed intent, they showed purpose in that game. They were closing down, and that was a United team that was on a bit of a run. Since then, ironically, United have gone on to win 8 out of the last 10, drawing 2, I think, and their only loss being City and Red Bull and PSG in the Champions League. But so same question to you then. How do you see the game going? And what do you think needs to happen from here on? Do you think the kids need to keep playing? Do you think like Emil Smith-Rowe, Wilcock, Martinelli can sustain the form, can sustain the club this season?
Yeah, Arsenal's a very good example of, we talk about teams attacking with intent and verve. Like City for a while didn't really have that going forward, and then they started producing moments and winning games 1-0, and now they've gone back to showing a lot of that incisiveness and gumption when they go forward. Wolves have sort of not done that as well this season. We've commented a couple of times that Wolves, for example, last season look a little different to this season, and there's probably just that. And in this season where the games are coming thick and fast, the ability to repeatedly find that, it can, I think, for the players, there can be an element of game management within games if you're having so many games so quickly. And the ability to just have a go seems in this season more than any other that I can remember make a difference. And these youngsters coming through Arsenal, you know, they are, you know, they've come through the system. They've got that allegiance to Arsenal, and it's something about having that opportunity and seeing the club where it is, where I think that they've sort of helped lift the others. Crystal Palace's form has not been particularly great. They've only won one of their last 5, and it's Sheffield United, so I'm not even sure if that counts, frankly, with Sheffield United season. But I do think you talked a bit about, I guess, from a momentum perspective, Arsenal may suddenly fall, and I do feel that as well. I do feel when Arsenal stopped winning, and probably a bit like we talked about with Chelsea, they'd gone on a run, and when they sort of lost that first game, we mentioned that might happen to them. And I do think with Arsenal that will happen, that when they start to drop points, they will fall. I don't think that will happen this weekend, though. I do think Arsenal should and will win this game. Probably, I'm thinking 2-0. Crystal Palace have quite sort of struggled, like Neel was talking about. So I do think that the run will continue for now. I don't expect it to continue, say, to the end of the season. I do think you'll see that swing and that roundabout sort of come into play for them.
All right, let's to finish up. So we have United, Burnley, Sheffield, Newcastle, Wolves, Everton, City, Brighton, and we talked about the Villa game and the Palace versus Arsenal game. Neel, I'll come to you first as we wrap it up. Who do you see as a key player in this round? Who would you see? Is there a player that you'd like to kind of keep your eye on in these kind of 6 games?
Out of these 6 games,
yeah. We like to pick a like even a team or a moment or a manager, any kind of person you think.
Something you should just keep an eye on.
Yeah, little kind of person to watch or player to watch this round.
So I'm going to keep an eye on. I think you guys were mentioning Aston Villa in their form as well. Somebody that we were going to talk about was Douglas Luiz, actually, as a CDM, and he's really kicked on.
Oh man, he's been good.
I just wanted to bring it back to him because we've had an Aston Villa quiz from Villa together on our show as well, and talking about who was an underrated player for them, and they've mentioned Douglas Luiz, and when you look at him in the squad, he's one of the big reasons why they've kept form as well. So obviously Konza and Mings have been really good, and he's been one of the main the CDMs that's really kicked on this season. So I'd recommend him just because he's a little bit under the radar, and Fernandinho's another one for City that he is a really integral part to the way they play football. And without him, I think that literally they're a completely different team.
And same question to you, Sean, as always. Play to watch.
I'll go with a bit more of an obvious one. Cavani, I think, will play coming back from that suspension. I get why they suspended him. I still don't get why they suspended him for 3 games. I thought one might be enough. Obviously, they're establishing a precedent there, and I get that. I don't agree with it. I think that he'll have a point to make. I think against Burnley, and I think in a game that could potentially have tight margins, given that Burnley probably got their avoiding relegation face on. I think that he could be the one to make the difference.
And I'll just come to myself. I think the game we can't talk about, just again, in the interest of a bit of time, the Everton Wolves game is actually quite an exciting game, and I'm interested to see how they match up. They were very poor against in the FA Cup against Rotterdam, I think it was. And I just want to see how they bounce back. I think Calvert-Lewin has been a bit patchy as well of late. So I'll go Calvert-Lewin for Everton. Neel, any closing thoughts, man? It's been a pleasure to have you on. I think you've definitely said some very interesting points there. Any closing thoughts before we finish off?
Not really, but just, if you want to come over to our channel, we are Beyond the 90. You can see so it'll be at Beyond the 90 on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get you on our channel soon.
Not a problem, man. Sham, any closing thoughts?
Not really, no. Interesting set of fixtures coming up. These games are a lot of those catch-up games. So we talk about United had a game in hand, Villa had a game in hand. Those games are being played out now. So we've talked a lot about the permutations of teams and games in hand, but we're about to see that. And we're about to see if and how that shifts the table when the teams get a lot closer to having played the same amount of games.
Yep, perfect. So, guys, as Neel said, please do follow. Do go on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Beyond the 90. It's a Leicester City fan channel. I think Neel is fairly unbiased with his football opinions, in my opinion. He talks a lot of sense, and please do go follow him. My name is Suddy. This is Sham. We are the 5 Hour Pass podcast. Keep football simple, and as always,
Keep passing, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.